Coolidge?
Happy to.
Okay.
Jason Peltier with Westlands Water District. I think I heard Keith say that we have a state project contract, and I just want to let you know that is a very deep secret that we have that contract with the State Water Project, and we don't need to talk about it anymore. I'm just joking, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to talk about, from Westland's perspective, where we are, but really we're similarly situated with a number of other districts from Tracy south to Mendota that have contracts with the CVP. In total, it's about 1 million acres of farmland and other refuges and small communities and large communities. We're all in the same circumstance in many ways. That 1 million acres of ag, by the way, there are 9 million acres of irrigated agriculture in California. So it's a good chunk of what drives the ag economy in the state. Before I get into the specifics, I want to say, yes, we fully recognize that we fit into a bigger context, and we are sensitive to the realities of upstream implications. Mr. Antoli, I'm sure, hears that number on average storage, and it sounds pretty good compared to what his community is looking at relative to Folsom and where Folsom is going to be. There's certainly upstream impacts and all kinds of water management implications of dry hydrology, and there, to say nothing of the ecosystem impacts. We are we started a few months ago looking at where we're going to end up at storage in the end of the year, and it's critical. It's red line kind of a situation where we're seeing with if we start in November, the beginning of the water year, and we have a normal water year going forward, and we have the operating kind of Endangered Species Act operating restrictions like we've seen this year, we could well have, when we get our initial allocation, a zero or a very low number in terms of our initial allocation, and it's going to be a function of hydrology, and it's going to be a function of how the prescriptions and limitations on the project are implemented. For us, that it is major alarm bell time. We have a crisis on the horizon, and we have a duty to our customers and communities we support to act and be prepared. And I agree wholeheartedly, Mr. Chairman. You can't wait until you realize that, oh boy, the hydrology is bad or the restrictions are so bad and we're at a 0, 10, 15% water supply to start making decisions. We are on a vector to push decisions to be made early, before the beginning of the water year, that might mitigate some of the problems we face. Certainly, we've had 20 years in the CVP service area of coping with the shortages. We've had 3 full supply years in 20 years. Otherwise, we've had 40, 60, up to 90% reductions in water supply. And we've got some basic response mechanisms that we know will be used. We know that farmland will be fallowed. We know that water purchases, to the extent that the water market can function, will be made. And we know that we will see continued overdraft of our groundwater resources. None of these are sustainable long term. None of these mechanisms are sustainable. In fact, and a lot of the other, Gary talked about hardening of demand. We have seen a significant investment in irrigation systems, efficiency systems, automation. 80% of our district is now in drip or micro sprinkler. So that is, there's been a huge response to the largely regulatory-driven drought that we faced. But we have, over the 20 years, worked, obviously, on trying to find administrative solutions to the problems we have. We've, in our work so far for this year, we've identified 50-some actions that could be taken in categories of statutory changes or exercising statutory discretion, operations changes, monitoring, ecosystem monitoring that could be done, physical changes in the system, different like improve the delta turbidity model, et cetera, and water transfers, things that could be done in water transfers. We have not delved into the question of, in light of potential public health and safety risks, where do the emergency powers of the governor take us? Where could they take us? What might those powers do? How might they be exercised to increase water supply scenarios or water supply situation? Before I go any further, I'm about halfway done. Before I go any further, I want to go back to this comparison of today versus where were we in 1977 or in the multi-year drought that ended in 92. We're in a very, very different place. With two really significant drivers. One is Shasta, for all practical purposes, is a million acre feet smaller than it was in those times. It is a 4.5 million acre foot reservoir. In 1977, we drew it down to about 700,000 acre feet. Today, we have a prescription from the National Marine Fisheries Service that says don't or do everything possible to not draw it down below 1.7 million acre feet. So there's a million acre feet of water reserved for temperature control on the Sacramento River that is not accessible. It's not usable for human use. We've also had a significant and continual layering of restrictions and prescriptions on project operations, and I think this is probably true up and down the Central Valley in different systems, to one extent or another. But we have the simple reality that we have layers and layers of restrictions, and for which we probably in a lot of cases can't recall or remember why the restriction was put in place, or certainly what good it has done ecosystem-wise. And I think the important exercise that we need to go through, the agencies need to go through, is examining those restrictions and limitations and finding where is the discretion, where have they worked, where have they not worked, and again back to where is the discretion and what might be, how might we evolve those. I would I think that it's clear in my mind that there are many restrictions in how the project's operated. I mean, just look at the 20 years of reallocation and restrictions of operations in the name of helping fisheries in the state of our fisheries today. So it just intuitively tells me that, we can see an improvement in our water supply circumstance and not have that come at the cost of the ecosystem or the fisheries. That's what I want to believe, and that's what I want to pursue. Obviously, taking actions that would threaten some of our sensitive fish species are going to be controversial, but I think we need to go in with an open mind to the science. The last point I would like, the second last point I'd like to make is to point you to the Trinity River issue that we're dealing with right in front of us today. There is a potentially very significant salmon return on the Klamath River. The agencies have identified a significant possibility of disease in the lower Klamath River and have asked, the Pacific Fisheries Management Council has asked the Bureau, and as have the tribes and others, to make an extraordinary, maybe extra legal, but an extraordinary release of Trinity water down the Trinity to freshen up the lower end of the Klamath River. They're talking about 60,000 acre feet of water that is not taken out of the huge block of water that's already been reserved for Trinity River operations and improvement in in-stream flows there. They're talking about something above and beyond. And while we are certainly supportive of pursuing protective measures for the fish, we have significant science questions as to whether those disease problems can be resolved with this water. But really we have a huge policy issue that we think is kind of an example of what we're going to see elsewhere as we go into potentially drought crisis. And that is, where are the equities and where are the responsibilities and the burdens placed for taking extraordinary action? In this case, between the lost power and lost water, we estimate that the replacement cost for that water and power for that action, which that they're talking about on the Klamath River, could be $30 million. And where does that fall? It falls on the CVP water and power customers. I think there's a bigger public policy question that needs to be addressed here relative to the public benefit, the ecosystem health, the factors driving conditions on the Klamath River, et cetera. So we're entering into conversations with the Bureau. They seem to be pretty clearly have made up their mind. They've committed in the past that if they take these actions, they will try and mitigate them. We have not seen action. We're trying to pursue action. The last observation I would have is that in the water community, we are really good about fighting each other, and we've got a long history that has it so we can fight each other and break bread, and fight each other and have fun, and fight each other in court, in regulatory environments, et cetera, et cetera. But we also have a history of, in time of crisis, coming together, and mutual aid and mutual assistance, and working to try to find ways to lessen problems for our neighbors and our fellow water managers in the state is something that I can't put my finger on right now, but I know that there's a spirit of cooperation. We certainly saw it we've seen it in prior droughts. We've seen it in 2009 in some extraordinary collaboration between ourselves and Metropolitan Water District. That there is a pool of mutual aid out there that we can all work in. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Pilcher.